Welcome to Saltivation. The Saltivation Show is a podcast series featuring the leading voices in salt, where we talk about the issues and strategies to help you make sense of state and local tax.
Hey everyone, welcome to our little video. I'm Alex Korzhen from Tax Ops, and this is Tram.
Hi.
Hey Tram. So Tram and I were just talking about a client issue related to cannabis. They're in the cannabis space, and we thought this was actually a great opportunity to just do a very quick high-level overview of the state side of things of cannabis. 280E, it seems like, dominates the conversation at the federal level, but there's definitely some state considerations that are out there as well. So we just thought we'd do a really high-level survey of that, right?
Yep, sounds good.
So Tram, you were just kind of talking about, the high level of it and how we should start thinking about it from a state perspective.
Yeah, no, so I think kind of with all of the new states passing laws legalizing marijuana from medical use to recreational use, and also, the various forms like CBD oil or, other types of marijuana related laws, I think it's really important that people understand, what's legal in each of these states and what can they do or can't they do from a state tax perspective. So I think kind of starting that conversation and understanding kind of the use, like in Texas, we passed a law a few years ago legalizing CBD oil. And then, in this last legislation, we had a special legislation session. And I think, Texas has had a lot of proposals to pass marijuana medically, but I think this might be kind of the time where Texas is really going to consider it and might have already done that. And so, from that perspective, it's like really understanding what's legal in each of these states is really important.
That's a great point. Here in Minnesota, where I sit, we've had medical marijuana for a number of years now, but we do not have recreational marijuana use legal. So, I think we've been having conversations here in state as to what that state taxation of that might look like once we get it, and at a high level, what the policy considerations of that taxing scheme might be. I kind of jumping ahead for a second, the state taxation of cannabis right now is an intrastate enterprise. We do not have cross-border, the ability for plant-touching entities to go cross-border, right? They have to sell, they have to be licensed in the state, they have to sell in-state. I think, there are support services and vendors that can go cross-border and they serve companies, plant-touching companies all over the place, software companies and suppliers and et cetera. Yep. But the actual plant-touching verticals cannot go cross-border. So those companies might be very, very aware of what's affecting them in their state, right? And what the state taxing scheme might be. But there isn't a lot of consistency from state to state and how they do it. Some states will impose a sales tax. Some states will impose an excise tax. Some states will impose both a sales tax and an excise tax together. And you have this tax pyramiding. What tax is imposed and at what level of the process that tax is imposed upon whom? Is it the distributor, is it the wholesaler, is it the retailer? There's multiple distributors. Is it the first distributor, is it the last one, right? So there's a lot of consideration and a lot of detail from state to state. A good example, I think, is probably California compared to Illinois, whereas California will assign this little strange metric that they create based on weight, whereas Illinois will do it based on potency, based on THC content, and I believe Illinois is the only state that does it that way. So it's just interesting what schemes they choose, right? I think the solution is software.
Well, then, I guess, understanding, what's being taxed, how it's taxed is going to be a big headache because, not just from state to state, but like kind of what you're saying, like all the players and they are referred to like the ecosystem. Are you a cultivator? Are you a manufacturer? Are you just a supplier? So it's like understanding your role and understanding what types of taxes that you might be subject to in a given state is really hard to get your arms wrapped around. In one state, more or less like the rest of the states, I think we're at like 36 or so states that actually have passed some sort of legalization of marijuana in some shape or form. So, I think understanding kind of how that works together is going to be really important. And once you do understand that, yes, absolutely, the software will help, do the calcs and make sure, you're charging appropriately. But then you also have to deal with like exemptions, because like in Colorado, they have the exemptions for certain licensees. So depending on, what you're using it for, how you're using it, you might have an exemption and you don't have to pay the tax, and you need to make sure you understand what are the particular documentation that you need to provide in order to be exempt. Absolutely. So, even with, I think you threw out kind of like the suppliers. I mean, we have a lot of clients who do supply to this ecosystem, and they don't even know what they need to provide. They don't even know if the products they're selling could be considered exempt for like manufacturing or agricultural purposes, because depending on how a state defines what a crop is or what manufacturing is, do they define it? Does this, cannabis crop fall within any of those buckets to be exempt? I mean, that's probably the most, I guess, difficult part, unless a state's addressed it.
Absolutely. That's I 100% agree. I think there's a lot of discomfort in the lack of guidance on that topic, right? And the states that have firm guidance, whether it's we agree with it or don't from a policy perspective, at least you have it, right? You have the state's position, but the majority states are silent, and that's really challenging to come up with which side of that fence you're going to fall on and what your risk tolerance is. So it's tough to advise in that kind of environment, and I think certain people are not comfortable with that. But that is the state of things at the moment.
Absolutely. And I mean, the sad part is all these vendors and all these businesses are left to either not do anything because they don't understand, and then they get slapped by an audit, right? Because we are dealing with that for one of the marijuana suppliers that we're helping. But it's really sad, just because it is a growing industry, and it's just not that clear.
Right, and like we said in the beginning, we do anticipate that these jurisdictional boundaries will collapse at some point. Unclear when, but we think that that'll happen. So it's very possible that overnight, well, overnight is an exaggeration, but virtually overnight, we can go to having a market in one state to all of a sudden having a market in 30 some odd states, or if more states legalize, potentially 50 states. We have these complexities in each individual state, and then multiply that by 50, and now we're dealing with a lot of complexity and a lot of nuance.
That is very nicely said.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Anything else for closing?
I think we're good. This has been very good to kind of just talk through, because there are so many issues. There are a lot of moving parts. So definitely understanding kind of what you're facing is really important. So I think hopefully this is going to be informative to our clients and those who view our awesome video here.
Okay. Thanks, Tram. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Take care.
All right. Bye.
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended, nor should it be relied upon as legal, tax, accounting, or investment advice. You should consult with a competent professional to discuss specifics of your situation and the applicability of the information presented.